Welcome back to part 3 of our discussion on convergence and LAN topologies with Phybridge CEO John Croce. On our last segment, we were talking about the cloud because obviously any discussion these days with communications technologies and convergence, the cloud is a huge thing. And two of my observations is, number one, it's really been around under a different name for a long time. And secondly, it seems to be that there's resistance to adopting the cloud. What are your comments?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of value to the applications being in the cloud, especially for distributed enterprise. And this movement to mobile workers and remote workers, it makes a lot of sense. And the focus from a customer positioning perspective is about all the applications being out in the cloud. And not enough focus, in my opinion, has been on what does it take for the customer, especially a larger customer, that needs to, in essence, put that in place for their business.
So if I have a customer with, let's say, 200 users, and they're thinking about going to the cloud, maybe they've been a little late to the first round of voice over IP. Maybe why would Phybridge be an opportunity for them? Why should we be thinking Phybridge in those instances?
Yeah, good point. Like, I mean, everything's in the cloud, so why are you thinking about the premise? Well, we call it the missing link, from DMARC to desktop. And what that is, of course, the cloud hits the building, and that's where the applications come into the building. But from a customer perspective, they're going, okay, great, the applications just hit my building. I have 200 users on 4 different floors. How do I get those IP phones lit up and working well such that the user experience is consistent with what they're accustomed to, quality of service and a reliable backbone? Well, if you look at our switch and what it does, again, Ethernet and PoE over the one pair, which means the customer can leverage their existing voice infrastructure. And they can then light up those phones easily. So whether you're 20 users or 2,000 users, that voice infrastructure is exactly the same.
Well, I think too, if you're outsourcing some of your applications, why are you going to do something that's very heavy LAN intensive, that's going to require LAN engineers just to maintain your cloud solution at that point?
Yeah, good point. Very, very, very valid point, because in essence, the applications is out in the cloud, and what you really want is to make sure the user's device that's delivering those applications is robust, has a platform that's robust and reliable. And that's what we do, independent of the data switch fabric.
Yeah, one of the problems I've seen too is when customers run into quality problems with their hosted voice solution.
Good point.
What do you do? And they end up going back to the carrier, trying to get it figured out, and the carrier is saying everything's fine on their end. They think the pipe's big enough, yet they're still having problems. Is that an area that your product can help address? That's
a really valid point, is when a provider puts their voice solution on a data switch fabric that may not be managed by them, and often it's not managed by them, and sometimes is actually managed by their competitors. Yet the user, if we look at it from a user perspective, if I have to wait for a data file to open and it takes 3 to 5 seconds, I'm accustomed to that. I'm not going to call anybody. But if I can't understand someone on the other end, a customer on the other end of the phone, you're going to get the call. So the voice provider gets the first call, even though 70 to 80% of the problems are actual data network related, not voice related. Yet with our solution, you create a fully independent backbone complementing the data. So now the carrier, our partners, have end-to-end control from the user all the way to the application in the cloud. So now it eliminates that dependency potentially on the competitor, but it allows them to deliver a great user experience, and that's what they want to do.
Well, I mean, otherwise they're going to change providers or give up on the technology altogether and go back to an on-premise solution. And either way, they're still going to run into the same problems.
Correct. Actually, yeah, you're right. And this is where, unfortunately for the customer, they go through all this effort, the user has a poor experience, the user gives up on learning about the applications, which is the return on investment for the customer. Right? That doesn't make sense, does it? And that's where we come in, where you can deliver that robust platform focus with the users on teaching them how to use the applications, driving a better return on investment for the customer.
Yep.
It's a simple paradigm. Just look from the customer back,
Yep.
not from technology out.
Yep.
If you do that, you're going to come out with a logical solution that best serves the customer's needs.
Well, you know, analysts predict in the next 3 years that as much as 40% of the market share can be hosted. So that's obviously a great place to be, is you know, a really elegant solution to addressing the current problems that exist in the voice over IP. So I think that's great. John, I really want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for your support, this ongoing conversation on convergence technologies. Really appreciate you being here.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being a leader and finding us and bringing us to the community. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Convergence Today.